You know, last week I decided to take a short break from making videos, and that was really a good idea. I spent some time with friends and family, played some games, and even got some done off of my backlog I've been meaning to get to for ages, even ones I'm not extremely proud of. But like all good things, they must come to an end. And the way how I ended off my break from making videos was heading over to my cows, and let me tell you, this one over here was fresh for milking. Yes, ever since I decided to actually start taking YouTube seriously back in 2022, I decided, since my first proper return to YouTube was a video on the then Call of Duty beta at the time, that every single year when the next entry's beta comes out, I decide to make a dedicated video on it. In 2022, it was for Modern Warfare 2, which I had a lot of fun with. In 2023, it was Modern Warfare 3, a game that proved just how useful the copy and paste keys can be in a work environment. And now here we are in 2024, with this year's entry into the gaming community's favorite cash cow, Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Now, some interesting history with this one. Now, as we all know, the Call of Duty series is shared between 3 developers, 2 of which are the most noteworthy, and the third one is the estranged child that nobody really likes. And the 2 primary developers for Call of Duty are Infinity Ward and Treyarch. Now, whereas Infinity Ward has always been attached to Call of Duty since day one, Treyarch used to make good games. And for most of Call of Duty's lifespan up until 2010, Infinity Ward has always been at the helm of some of the most critically acclaimed entries into this franchise, starting all the way back with the first Call of Duty in 2003, then Call of Duty 2, then the entry that spelled the start of the end for this franchise, and then finally we reach Modern Warfare 2, which has the funny airport mission. Now, during this time frame, Treyarch has made a total of 2 COD games, starting off with Call of Duty 3, the game where you get to punch a Nazi using a Wii remote, and World at War, which up until that point was the darkest entry into the franchise at the time. But despite how beloved that entry was, it wasn't near the quality of Infinity Ward's games. That is, until 2010 with the release of the first Black Ops, where it seems that the tides were busy shifting into Treyarch's favor. And I'm sure I'm not the only person saying that. It would seem that ever since this monumental game released in the franchise, everybody started to seem to shift their attention over to Treyarch's Call of Duty titles. And I mean, that's for good reason too. It was the first game where the campaign had one of the best written stories, the best multiplayer at the time with the most iconic map on Nuketown, and without a doubt the best game mode in the entire series, zombies. And Treyarch was pretty much able to keep that momentum going with the next game in the series with Black Ops 2, which me and many other people consider to be the peak of Call of Duty. Then later down the line, it seemed that they've taken a little bit too much Benadryl for Black Ops 3 and 4, taking the series in the most radically different direction it has ever seen, started to go a little bit sober for Black Ops Cold War, and then completely relapsed and hit rock bottom with Black Ops 6. Don't do drugs, kids, this could be you one day.
Or a puss.
Yes, I understand that must have seemed like a very dark turn at the end, but after playing the Black Ops 6 Early Access Beta, I'm starting to think my feelings are completely justified. Not that I had any particularly high expectations going into this game in the first place, but somehow I still left disappointed. So let me actually get into the beta so I can explain why that is. So firstly, we enter our main menu with the character in a dark room busy taking a shit. See that we have a total of 3 options, one of which is unfortunately the only option that we are allowed to choose, with the other 2 just sitting there locked with no way of accessing them, like the most cruel edging session any of us has ever been subjected to. After reluctantly selecting the only available option, we get jump scared by a white guy, and to cope with the trauma, I took the easy way out. After the recovery process, we wait in the lobby that has remained completely unchanged for the past 5 years, and then we get thrusted into our first game, Team Deathmatch, on this new match called Skyline. And upon loading in, yep, this is Call of Duty. But since I played a shit ton of Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer ever since that came to Game Pass, I think I had way too much practice going into this. It's quite poetic actually if you really start to think about it. I started off getting my ass handed to me in the Modern Warfare 2 beta, to now where I'm the one people are calling to get banned. But despite my obvious ascension to COD sweat, what exactly do you guys want me to say? I feel that with every single beta that comes out in the future, I just think I'm gonna end up having less and less things to talk about. It's Call of Duty. Have you played Modern Warfare 2019? Cool, then you can leave now. You can run, you can sprint, you can tactical sprint, you can ADS, you can jump, you can shoot, you can inject yourself with roids, and if you're brave enough, to hell with the code of conduct, you can maybe even hurl a slug. It's literally the same fucking stuff we've been playing for the past 17 years at this point. But hold your horses, everybody. There is in fact, one addition to the gameplay that I feel should be talked about because it's the only thing that even the game thinks is worth talking about. And that is the newly implemented OMNIMOVEMENT system. Yes, by the power of moving your legs 360 degrees, your character can now channel their inner Max Payne, Venom Snake, and John Helldiver. They can now sprint and hurl their body into whatever direction they feel like, creating a John Woo action movie moment that ultimately doesn't mean anything because this is ultimately one of the most pointless integrations I've ever seen in any game. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been following along with the development of Black Ops 6, then you'll know that one of the most talked about aspects of the game was the new OMNIMOVEMENT system. A mind-blowing addition to the series, I'm sure, and for the people who spend $2,000 on a Helsing Alucard skin for Warzone, they must be gooning at the very thought of the endless ways they can exploit this new system to create even more movement and combat scenario with such a new expansion to movement. But for those of us who actually play more than one game every single year, this is just something that isn't really innovative whatsoever in terms of game mechanics. Because like I mentioned, diving in any and all directions. Need I bring up again? Max Payne, Metal Gear Solid 5, Helldivers 2. This isn't exactly anything new. And the way how Black Ops 6 implements this new revolutionary mechanic, which I'm pretty sure must have drained at the very least 80% of the animation budget, it's just something that's there. Half of the time that I was playing this early access beta, I genuinely, no joke, kept forgetting that it was there, only remembering it was a thing when I accidentally dived to the side and wondered why my ribs hurt so much. For such an integral part of the game and pretty much 90% of its marketing, this has got to be one of the most underwhelming things I think I've ever had the displeasure of experiencing in any video game, just because of how pointless this addition actually is. Hell, the more fun thing that I cannot believe most people aren't talking about is the ability to take people as human shields. I mean, this is so funny. It finally introduces backshots to the Call of Duty community. But moving on from all of that, let's actually talk about the beta. So during the course of this early access beta, we initially only started with 3 modes and 3 maps, but as days passed, more maps have been introduced along with newer modes. These maps in question is the aforementioned Skyline, which looks like a place real estate gurus will try to sell you on YouTube, Derelict, which is an abandoned train yard, which also looks like an airsoft course you can get for cheap with the caveat of you potentially getting tetanus, Scud, for whichever reason reminded me of Dome from Modern Warfare 3, except much like the rest of this series, this place has definitely seen better days. And the other maps that they decided to add after a couple of days include Rewind, which looks like a shopping district in my town, except with more people shooting at each other instead of stealing your parking, so this is obviously way more fun. And the 2 final maps that they've added before the end of the early access was Pit and Gala, one of which looks like it's trying to be a crossover with the Metro series, and the other being the place where they invited the FaZe clan to test this game instead of us who actually deserve to be there. And our very cool epic game modes that we have access to is your good old-fashioned team deathmatch, which is the only game mode you should really care about because discharging your firearms at every single thing moving is very fun. Hardpoint, which isn't a euphemism for an erection, but instead, disappointingly, is your capture the moving zone game mode. Domination, where you can see which team can hold all 3 of these points, with the team that has the most zones getting more points added to their overall score. Kill Order, which is essentially team deathmatch, except this time it has a favorite child on the map that has more health and has the ability to get revived once he's down. And then finally, the 2 game modes that were added last are face-off versions of team deathmatch and Killed Confirm. Now, the face-off in question refers to the fact that these maps are tiny, which I actually prefer, and the fact that they just allow me to kill everybody on the opposite team without any penalty whatsoever was a great way for me personally to end off this beta. But besides all of that, yep, this is a COD game. And let me tell you right now, if you're trying to get into this game solely for the multiplayer, I'm really sure you need to get your head checked out because I think that this game is giving you a severe case of Stockholm Syndrome. It's just the exact same shit fed every single year on the exact same rusty spoon. And this might be very hard for everybody to hear, but the whole OMNIMOVEMENT thing that they've been absolutely frothing at the mouth from isn't all that hype as the marketing team would have you believe. And you know what? That also genuinely sucks coming from what me and many others will consider to be the superior Call of Duty developer. Because when playing this game in comparison to their previous entry with Black Ops Cold War in 2020, it doesn't even really feel all that unique anymore. It just feels like every Infinity Ward Call of Duty game since 2019, only this time if it had an affair with Helldivers. It's just sad. But there might still be one silver lining in all of this, and those are the two things I'm actually the most excited for when this game officially launches: the campaign and zombies. Even though thanks to all of the marketing for this entire game, I'm starting to worry that neither of which will really deliver anything worthwhile and will continue to prove that Call of Duty is a dying franchise that only drip feeds you tiny little bits of innovation in its formula, but ultimately comes off more like a Peter Molyneux title, overpromised yet underdelivered. But hey, on the bright side of all of this, it's coming to Game Pass day one, so for those of you who actually like spending your money on actual life necessities, there's at the very least that. And hey, I'll be sure to cover that when it launches this October. So, unless something substantial happens before then, I'll be seeing you guys in October. Have a good one.